All right, we're live. This is not Memorex. Do they do that anymore? They don't do that anymore. Is this live or is this Memorex? All right, shalom, everyone. It's amazing. See, the food is gone and so are the people. It's amazing how that works. I know, and then they took the food and left. Okay. Anyway, we just had our little 8th anniversary celebration. It's been 8 consecutive weeks that we've done this Torah study. No, I'm kidding. It's been eight years of Beth Shalom. Welcome to everyone. Okay, we got Manny on the live stream desk, and we've got the live stream going here. So tonight, as we do every week, we're going to go ahead and do our Torah study, going through the yearly cycle, the 1-year cycle of the Torah portions, from Genesis through Deuteronomy. We are beginning our second book. So it's very exciting. We're into Exodus or Shemoth. And so this is our first Torah portion, which is also named Shemoth. And so that's going to be exciting now as we start our second book. We're going to have 10 readers today. And for those of you that are on live stream, so what we're going to do is we're going to start off with some prayer time. I'll make some announcements. Then we're going to go ahead and do the readings. I'll make a few more announcements. And then we'll go ahead and discuss the readings, okay? So this is how we're going to kind of work that out, all right? So we'll begin with prayer time. So Steve Waffle's got the microphone. He'll bring it around to those who have prayer requests. And Manny will take down anything from the live stream. Okay, Rabbi Tom?
Thank you. I would like to ask prayer for my firstborn granddaughter, Tiana. She's not doing real well, and she needs some prayer. She was in the hospital this morning. I guess she's home now.
Okay, amen. We certainly can pray for that. Okay, coming over here to Tricia.
Thank you. I just want to continue to lift up my mom. She was rushed into emergency at the hospital. Apparently her gallbladder needed to be removed, and so they did that. I just got a text from my dad, and she's out of surgery. Everything went well. The gallbladder looks really bad, though, so it's going to be about a week before they find out if it's cancerous. So that still doesn't solve the problem in her neck and all the other issues, so perhaps this is a stepping stone where she can get the help that she needs. So just please continue to keep her in prayer. Thank you.
Amen. We certainly can do that. Okay, Sarah Beth.
Shalom.
Got the color shirt correct today?
I had made me lose my train of thought. I had an unspoken and a praise. I was at work. The review we get at year end affects not bonus, but the raise. And the review I wanted, I was told there was almost like 0 chance I could get, and I got it. So, thanks.
Yeah. Those are good ones. Okay, Rick.
Yeah, continued prayer request for Kevin Shutt. He is at home. They discharged him last night about midnight. It took him that long to get transport to take him home, but he is at home. So just prayers for the arrangements for his various treatments he's going to need from here on. And his wife, yes.
Yes, okay. All right. This is good, since you guys are all sitting on this side because the table's there. It means I can just focus this way, focus on the live stream desk. It's all on this side. And Marty's going to be like, but the camera's here. Why don't you look this way? Okay. Go ahead, give it to Manny. That was fast. Hey, listen, prayer time can be quick. That's good. It means we're blessed and walking in abundance, so to speak. That's good.
So Selena for Tommy. Tommy's headed to Omaha for a few days. Safe travels for him. And energy and good health for her. Tracy, still need prayer for her neck. Just adjusting to the new screws, plates, and bone grafts. Some sleep would definitely help. Also prayers for loved ones that aren't Torah observant. Brown, pray for relief of abdominal pain and family with the flu. A lot of people actually, unfortunately, struggling with the flu. Prayers for my wife, Michelle, who's at home now. First I was sick this Shabbat, now she's sick. So she's struggling with the flu. I'm still getting over the flu, but on my way out, so we're good. Olivia and Janet Hoffman, prayers for safe travels for training. Janet is taking out of town this week. Prayers for discernment and wisdom for our marriage and family. Shan, praise for Chris, who had a motorcycle accident. His brain is recovering, and every day Yah is doing miracles. It's beautiful to watch, especially since the doctors gave a bad report. Lisa, please pray for me while I'm still not doing well with the passing of my mom 2 months now. I went to call her and just broke down. Michelle Perez, prayer request for Michelle and her dad and Marco Polo sisters in the path of wildfires and bad weather. Robert Wyatt, prayers for Alexi. Prayers for Alexi. Wife passed yesterday from cancer. Family, friends, fellowshiped with in Florida. Her name was Svetlana. Britt, I'd really appreciate your prayer for strength because I'm newly dedicating myself to really following Torah. Also, please pray for guidance as I've really been disliking my job and I was unsure of, and I think she cut there. She was unsure of moving to another position or just stick to it. MTOI Lakeview, Ohio, Gary, praising Abba for all he is doing here and for the new role and pay raise evaluation I got at work. Continued prayer for our family, especially Hannah, as we had to put one of our dogs down today. Lissa, she says, I hope this doesn't sound selfish, but please pray that the batteries are still under warranty in her power assist wheels for her chair. I need one, and they are very, very, very expensive. Amy and Brad Jones, prayers for my sister who had dental procedure done today. And a lot of unspoken prayers. So, but that's all I have at the moment.
Okay, no problem. All right, so we do want to add the, all the people that have contacted the ministry since the last time that we had this, gathering together, which was on Shabbat. And also, because we do get a lot of phone calls every day and a lot of emails and that kind of thing. I do want us to pray for, I don't know how I want to say this. Well, I'll hold that for a second. Let's pray for my wife who's in Florida with her father and the things that she's having to deal with. It's not easy to have the roles reversed. When your parent gets to the point where you're now having to parent them and watch them, when they got to watch you, they got to watch you grow and discover, and now you're watching them decline and fall apart, and it's really, really hard to watch that, okay? And you love them and you want to be there for them, but to watch them in the declining, so of course, somehow with age comes stubborn. None of you have parents that are stubborn, do you? You don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, so something like once you get north of like 70 or 80, super amounts of stubborn come in, okay? And, so let's pray that he will let people take care of him. Because that's where the stubborn sort of gets involved when people want to take care of you and you just don't let them because you have your own ideas of what you're willing to let people do, whatever. But, she's glad she's there. She's having, a blessing in doing that, but, it's hard emotionally, okay? I seem to be doing better. I'll probably still cough during the study at all, but I seem to be doing a little bit better. So praise Yah for that. Also, I guess we'll go on to the subject I wanted to cover, which is, and it had to do with a little bit to deal with this and some of the other things people were talking about on here is, we get lots of phone calls, we get lots of emails, we have lots of situations here locally, we talk to people who have congregational issues where they are, and almost all of it comes down to our emotional struggles, and we talk about this a lot, but I want us to pray. I mean, we had a few voicemails and a few emails and things for people who maybe contacted us 2, 3, 4 weeks ago we hadn't gotten back to, and that can happen, especially the bigger we get, as far as, not bigger like, oh, we're so big, but the more people we're in contact with and helping, the more our staff size is going to be a challenge for the amount of contacts. And I have to tell you, so that you understand this, that if I'm on the phone with you, or if one of the other staff members is on the phone with you, they may spend 30, 40 minutes, an hour with you or more. Now, imagine if we could do that, maybe 3, 4 times in a day, but how many people might be contacting us? And so it's impossible for us to not miss something, okay? And so we get fairly strongly worded voicemails and emails and messages, saying how, oh, well, I just knew you guys were one of those ministries, and blah, 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 because we can't get to everybody all the time. However, I promise you, if you keep calling and let us know it's urgent when you get through, we will get to you and help you. Emailing is like the least effective thing. Now, of course, I'm sure the people that I'm talking about aren't even people who get on live stream and follow us that way. They probably find YouTube videos and watch the videos and found our website. But the phone number's on the website. So please pray, that's why I'm doing this during prayer time, for people to have an emotional maturity to understand that it's not all about you. There's a whole big family of people out there that have just as much need, maybe even more than you do. But your need is yours, and it's the most real to you. And it's not that we don't care about you. You just have to be a little more persistent to get through. But when you get through, you'll get the attention you need, and etc. Now, here's a recommendation, though. When you do get through, don't spend and waste any of the time telling us about how hard it was to get through and all the other things that you're disappointed about and frustrated with, because none of us on this end has any time for that. Just get right to why you're calling, because you got through, okay? Because I'm not mature enough at this point to not sort of cut you to the quick if you start doing that and say, I get it, what's your question? Do you want to waste the rest of this time just whining, or do you have a question? What can I help you with, or do you just want to attack? If you want to attack, I'm hanging up. I don't have time for that. Other people really need help and aren't going to waste their time, not my time only, but their time, whining and complaining. You finally get me on the phone, which for some people it's not finally. You get through pretty good. It's timing. It's just random. I may be here, I may not. But if you catch me on the phone, go right into what you need. Let me help you with what you need. I don't need the rest of that. I also don't need your entire backstory or the history of your life, etc. If I do, I'll ask you for it based on the things you're asking me to help you with. I say, give me more information about this, this, or this. Okay? Bear in mind that you are important, but there are others also. So let me help you and give you as much time as you, here's the key word, need. Not as much time as you want. I don't have that kind of time. None of us do. If we're any good at what we do, other people will know that and they're going to want help too, right? So therefore, we're going to be busy. But I don't want you to not call because we're busy. We want to help you. Be patient, keep trying, and then when you do get us on the phone, get right to the point. We do not have time to socialize. I know a lot of people call because they want me to get to know them and get to know me. I have no time for that. I'm sorry. You want to get to know me, come to the feast. I got lots of time at the end of the night after we finish our events to sit and talk to anybody, okay? Come to an event. Come visit here. Come stay right after Oneg. I have plenty of time after we eat to hang out with anybody who wants to talk. I don't have that kind of time during the day to just, I just wanted to get a chance to, get to know Rabbi, get him to know me. It's nothing personal. It's not that I don't want to know you. I just can't spend time getting to know you when somebody else is having a crisis. Okay? And let me tell you something. This is prayer time. There's a lot of crises happening. Okay? People are dealing with marriages that are absolutely unraveling. People are dealing with careers and finances that are completely coming unglued. People are dealing with parenting issues with children that are coming completely into, the danger of something. Okay? I mean, there's so much serious stuff happening. Health issues that are critical where people are finding out they may be dying and they don't know what to do. Or their loved one may be dying and they don't know what to do, or whatever. Not to mention all of the mixed marriages of people where one is covenanted and the other one isn't. Which is not a problem in itself, but what if it is one of those marriages where the one who isn't covenanted is really viciously against you being covenanted? Those people need help. More than I need to know you or you need to know me on a phone call. You want to know me? Come here, go to lunch with me, we'll get to know each other. All right? Just make an arrangement, say, I'm going to be in town. Can I make arrangements to go have a few minutes to sit with? I will do that with you, I promise. You come to visit, I will make time. Is that fair? Does that make sense? Okay. And again, this is not about me. It's about me making sure that we are available as a staff to help those who really are in urgent need of help. Okay? And if you're in urgent need of help, please say that when you first call, hey, I'm in urgent need. Can you get the rabbi for me, whatever. And by the way, please also recognize that whoever you're talking to may be able to help you if it's not urgent. Give them a chance, because I get a lot of phone calls, not a huge amount, that really somebody else could have handled before it got to me. Let them. Say, hey, I don't know if this is something that falls under what you can help me with. Ask them first, and they will tell you no, because they're good about telling you, no, it's not for me. I need to pass you up the line if that's what they need to do. Okay, they're not going to try to overstep what they should if they feel like it's something they're not qualified to answer, okay? Give them a chance. All right? But I mean, this is back to the fact that this is prayer time. We as a body, this is a prayer, this is important, because the journey into being a community is about to start here in the book of Exodus. And we're kind of in that same place, right? We are exiting this kind of world's life, the flesh and all of the things and the cares of the world. Thing is, we're still coming into whatever this is with all of the emotional junk. We can't handle any correction, any trauma, any criticism, any embarrassment, we can't handle almost anything. Our capacity to handle anything adverse, anything negative of any sort is very limited. We have very little ability to handle. And yet we're going to need the incredible capacity to deal with that, because if we're going to deal with people, you're going to deal with junk. You're going to deal with negative. You're going to deal with, I'm embarrassed. I don't know why that person's talking about me, why this person said this. I didn't do that. Why did I get accused? Or you're going to, whatever it is, it's just, we're dealing with people. And my prayer is that we are working hard to grow into that emotional strength of thick skin and soft heart. Because we are so thin-skinned and hard-hearted that it just doesn't work. Okay? And if you're going to come under vertical alignment, you're going to get tested in your ability to be corrected. To hear, some sort of critical adjustment that you might need to have. And if that's going to turn you into, I'm going to pack up and run, then where are you going to stop eventually from all that running? Well, you hurt my feelings. So what? Pick them up off the floor, put them back in the bag, and don't leave them out where anybody could step on them. And I don't mean to be callous, but that emotional place is not going to get you there. The scripture doesn't talk about this a lot directly, okay? But you need to know we're going into community, and community is people, and people are problems. People are not always respectful, not always courteous, not always loving and gentle, not always. There's a lot of meanness, there's a lot of harshness, as we grow. But don't you want to stick it in, stick into the thing. Don't you stay there long enough to get through it with them. They have to be patient with you, you have to be patient with them. This is my prayer. Everybody wants to quit. As soon as anything gets, I don't like it, I can't take, I'm leaving, I'm quitting. Don't quit. Where are you going to run anyway? Wherever you go, guess what's going to be there? You and people. So you're still going to have problems? You know, on the live stream, if you're wondering, I'm looking over here because everybody in the room is sitting on this side. We have tables over here at the moment. But where are you going to go? Wherever you go, you have two things, you and them. Different people, but still you. And guess what? Whatever you were dealing with, at least some peace, little or big, was you. So you can't just run away from one place and think, well, I'm going to go and there's going to be different people, it'll be better. But you're still bringing you. Why don't you stop and decide I'm going to deal with my stuff right here with these people? Okay? And that would really work. But I don't like the way the rabbi talks. I don't like the way this one treated me. I don't like them. So what? I don't know how else to say it. Look, you know, if you think there are people talking about you and you don't like it, I'll trade places. If you think people are hating on you, I'll trade places. If you think people are disrespecting you, I'll trade places. If you think, whatever it is, I'll trade you any day. My daughter has had to say to me from time to time, when things are like that are happening, she sees stuff that gets posted and stuff, she goes, how do you handle that? I said, I just accept it as it is what it is and I move on. But that's a place you have to be able to be. Otherwise, it would destroy you emotionally and you couldn't function. And I watch people on a daily basis who are destroyed emotionally and can't function because of some adversity. Oh, but you don't know what he said to me or she said to me or that one said or that one did. Come on, really? Compared to the sufferings of Messiah. We're told that in Scripture. Okay? What he suffered and what he went through so you could have life, and you're going to whine about some dumb thing that just happened with somebody, whatever. Really? Oh, but I'm embarrassed, and my pride is, has been beat on, and my ego has been stepped on, and we have a long way to go. And so my prayer is that we are willing to let the master potter take us as clay. And you know how you handle clay? Anybody remember making clay stuff? What's the first thing you did to that clay? You pounded the you-know-what out of it, didn't you? Otherwise, it would never become anything. You added water to it, water of the word. And then you got pounded. You got to pound that thing. Oh, but we don't like the pounding. All right? But you got to be pounded into, to become malleable and workable and be made into something. But see, there's no fun in that. And that was your mini sermon. Manny's already thinking about what images he's going to put to that. All right, let's go ahead and get someone to open us up in prayer. Where's the mic? Okay, Steve's got to give it to Rick. He can do it. Wait a minute, he's got to turn the camera around. We got one cameraman running around from different posts. There you go. Give Michael a second here. All right, go ahead and open us in prayer.
Abba, Father, we humbly come before you, thanking you for your word, your Torah, which we're about to hear from shortly. We thank you for hearing our prayers, the spoken and the unspoken. You know all the needs. You've got the answers. So we look to you to be with us during this time, to be with Rabbi as he guides us through this Torah portion, giving us insights into things that we may have missed before, that we surely have missed before, giving us greater insight to your truths and how we can walk them out in our lives to be pleasing in your sight, so that we can one day hear, well done, good and faithful servant. We ask all these things in the name of Yeshua Messiah. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Okay, now before we get started, I feel led to say one more thing. Excuse me. Whenever I do conversations like I just did, there will always be those that say, oh, this is because of what happened with me. And you are absolutely right. The only problem is there's like 16 or 18 or 20 of you that I'm actually referring to. So you're all right, but you're also wrong because you think it's just you. Oh, I know why he's talking about that. It's because of the conversation I had with him last week or yesterday or today or whatever. So you're right. You're absolutely right. There is a reason, and you are part of that reason. But you also reminded me that it's not just you that has the problem. Okay? So I don't want people to think, oh, see, I have a situation and Rabbi's going to out me in front of everybody. Yes, you and everybody else struggling with this issue, which is everybody. Okay? So please, what was that song from the into the 60s and the 70s? You're so vain, you probably think the sermon's about you. All right, you remember that song? Okay. So all right. But I do want you to know, yes, I am absolutely outing you, calling you out. Own it. If you weren't doing it, you wouldn't have to own it. You wouldn't have to be called out. All right? So then what do? You don't get all upset about it. You fix it. And what do you mostly do that most people struggle with the most? You let it go. You move on. You got to let it go. Release. Release it. Let it go. I mean, when I explain that to my daughter, I said, the reason I can handle when the haters hate is because I can let it go. All right? I don't have to own it. Okay? I could take my phone right now and throw it towards you guys, and you could either reach out and catch it or you can get out of the way. So whatever anybody throws at you, you don't have to catch it and take it and own it. You can just step out of the way. From this distance, you'll have plenty of time to move. Okay? And I'm not even talking like zipping it at you. I mean, just toss it in that direction. You can decide, well, I don't really want that to hit me and I don't want it. Just move over. Why do you let people throw things at you and you decide to just let it hit you and embrace it and own it? You don't have to accept it. Oh, but they did this horrible thing to me. No, they did it in your direction. You didn't have to own it. I mean, they did all kinds of things to Yeshua and he just didn't say a word. He said, forgive them, Father, they don't know what they're doing. He didn't ask them to apologize. He actually stood in sort of a place of intervention for them and said, I know they're doing a horrible thing, but they don't understand what they're doing. And I'm not going to receive what they're sending me. Okay? All right, Shemoth. What does Shemoth mean? Names. Okay? These are the names of the children of Israel who came to Egypt, to Mitzrayim, with Jacob. All right, so we're going to need 10 readers. I've got 7 chairs, it looks like. So let's fill them up. And I've got Rabbi Tom, so that's 8, so then we'll have 2 more after that. All right? Yes, Rabbi is going to go first. There's only a couple of names of the brothers at the beginning. It's not a name chapter. It's just going to name the brothers. You can't name the 12 tribes, Steve, you're in trouble. Okay. Come on, let's fill up those chairs. All right, and then we'll need 2 more after that. Okay, so I got 7 chairs plus Rabbi Tom plus 2 more. All right, Rabbi Tom, come on up. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to say a little blessing over each reader and then tell them what verses they're going to read to and from. So I'll let you know where to start and where to end, as we're going to go from chapter 1 through the beginning of chapter 6. Okay, that's what we're going to be doing today. Oh, I did say we're going to do some announcements. Let me do that very quickly here. I forgot about the announcements. Now that we got a bunch of people on there wondering, hey, is he ever going to get to the study part? Yes. Okay, and if you're all frustrated because we haven't started the study yet, well, then you missed the value of everything that just happened. Matter of fact, you were definitely who I was talking about. All right. So every Tuesday we do these studies on Tuesday here, 8 o'clock Eastern time. We do have a young Messianic Torah Observant Israel, YMTOI group that we have a free website, ymtoi.org, that has the Torah portions for children. It's a program that includes all kinds of things for the children to do, coloring pages and flashcards with Hebrew words and word search puzzles and crossword puzzles and snacks and crafts and all kinds of great things. Okay, a song that they can learn to sing that has to do with the Torah portion. For those of you that are already doing the Parsha Pearls program, there will be no new Parsha Pearls for the next 7 weeks. Okay, starting this week with Exodus, the first Torah portion in Exodus. But the old ones will still be available on the website from the last couple of years. So those are available. The next leadership meeting is on January the 19th. Okay, so that's coming up on Sunday. The reason it's coming up on this Sunday is because this past Sunday was my very amazing princess, my daughter's 15th birthday. And I got to spend every minute of that day with her. So it was beautiful, fantastic. Had a total daddy-daughter day. It was fantastic. All right. Then January the 26th is Rosh Chodesh for Shvat, the next month. We're going to do a meal here again and also then have a Rosh Chodesh service. That's on a Sunday. And then March 10th, which is also a Tuesday, is Purim and the Torah study. We're going to go ahead and read the book of Esther, and we are going to, again, of course, eat. What else is new, right? We'll eat, read the book of Esther, and then we'll have the Torah study after that at 8 o'clock. And then Passover 2020 is April 8th through 16th. And the website, MTOI.org website, has our applications for Passover, as well as we have them back here on the table. And so we have that going on, all right? Amen? And then keep in prayer. We haven't booked it yet, but we're trying to book and planning to try to get me to be in the Philippines for the second Passover. Okay? So I can do that with the group in the Philippines. So that would be in May. What part? I have no idea. The Philippines. Okay. I believe they're near Manila or something like that. Okay? Do we know, Stacia, do you know where Jed and those guys are? Do you know what part of the Philippines they're in? Near Manila, sounds right. Okay, near Manila. Okay? Okay. I'm glad I didn't say like the name of a city in some wrong country. I got the right. My brain was starting going, is Manila in the Philippines? Okay, it's the capital. Okay, we're good. All right. So I think that's where we're going to be near. Okay. Now to the Torah portion readings. We'll begin with Rabbi Tom. If you have a phone, go ahead and set that to silent. So we have that. Okay, you're going to read those verses. Okay. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Rabbi Tom, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to read the first 11 verses.
These are the names of the children of Israel who came to Mitzrayim with Yaakov, each one with his household. Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher, and all those who were descendants of Yaakov were 70 beings, as Joseph was already in Mitzrayim. And Joseph died, and all his brothers, and all that generation. And the children of Israel bore fruit and increased very much, multiplied and became very strong, and the land was filled with them. Then a new sovereign arose over Mitzrayim who did not know Joseph. And he said to his people, "See, the people of the children of Israel are more and stronger than we. Come, let us act wisely towards them, lest they increase. And it shall be, when fighting befalls us, that they shall join our enemies and fight against us, and shall go up out of the land." So they set slave masters over them to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh supply cities, Pithom and Raamses.
Amen. Amen. Okay, thank you, Rabbi Tom. Okay, next up, Steve. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Steve, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Steve's going to take us now from verse 12 to the end of chapter 1.
Okay. But they were afflicted, but the more they afflicted them, the more they increased and grew, and they were in dread of the children of Israel. And the Mitzrayim made the children of Israel serve with harshness, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and brick, and in all kinds of work in the field. All their work which was made them do was with harshness. Then the sovereign of Mitzrayim spoke to the Hebrew midwives, whom name was Sapphira, and the name of other Para. And he said, when you deliver Hebrew women and see them on the birth stools, if it is a son, then you should put him to death. But if it's a daughter, then she shall live. But the Mitzrayites feared Elohim and did not do as the sovereign of Mitzrayim commanded them, and kept the male children alive. So the sovereign of Mitzrayim called the midwives and said to them, why have you done this and kept the male children alive? And the Mitzrayites said to Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not like the Mitzrayim women. They are more lively and give birth before the midwives comes to them. So Elohim was good to the midwives, and the people increased and became numerous. And it came to be, because of the midwives feared Elohim, that he provided households for them. And Pharaoh commanded all his people, saying, throw every son who is born into the river, and keep every daughter.
Amen. Amen. Okay, thank you, Steve. Okay, next up, Betty. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Betty, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family, and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to take us now to chapter 2 and read verses 1 through 12.
Okay. And a man of the house of Levi went and married a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived and bore a son. And she saw that he was a lovely child, and hid him 3 months. And when she could hide him no longer, she took an ark of wicker for him, and coated it with tar and pitch, and put the child in it, and laid it in the reeds by the edge of the river. And his sister stood at the distance to know what would be done to him. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river. And her young women were walking by the river. And when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her female servant to get it, and opened it and saw the child. And see, the baby wept. So she had compassion on him and said, this is the one of the children of the Hebrews. And his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call a nurse for you from the Hebrew woman to nurse the child for you? And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. And the young woman went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this child away and nurse him for me. Then I shall pay your wages. So the woman took the child and nursed him. And the child grew. And she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moshe, saying, because I have drawn him out of the water. And in those days it came to be, when Moshe was grown, that he went out to his brothers and looked at their burdens. And he saw Mitzrayim striking a Hebrew and one of his brothers. So he turned this way and that way. And when he saw no one, he struck the Mitzrayim and hid him in the sand.
Amen. Amen. Okay, thank you, Betty. Okay, next up, Shannon. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Shannon, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family, and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to take us now from 13 to the end of the chapter.
Okay. And he went out the second day and saw 2 Hebrew men fighting, and he said to the one who did the wrong, why do you strike your neighbor? And he said, who made you a head and a judge over us? Do you intend to kill me as you killed the Mitzrayim? And Moshe feared and said, truly the matter is known. And Pharaoh heard of this matter, and he sought to kill Moshe. But Moshe fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian. And he sat down by a well. And the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water, and they filled the troughs to water their father's flock. But the shepherds came and drove them away. Then Moshe stood up and came to their rescue and watered their flock. And they came to Reuel, their father, and he said, "How is it that you have come so soon today?" And they said, "A Mitzrayim rescued us from the hand of the shepherds, and he also drew enough water for us and watered the flock." And he said to his daughters, "And where is he? Why did you leave the man? Call him and let him eat bread." And Moshe agreed to dwell with the man, and he gave Zipporah his daughter to Moshe. And she bore him a son, and he called his name Gershom, for he said, "I have become a sojourner in a foreign land." And it came to be after these many days that the sovereign of Mitzrayim died, and the children of Israel groaned because of the slavery, and they cried out. And their cry came up to Elohim because of the slavery. And Elohim heard their groaning, and Elohim remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Yitzhak, and with Yaakov. And Elohim looked on the children of Israel, and Elohim knew.
All right, thank you, Shannon. All right, Sarah Beth. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Sarah Beth, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Sarah Beth's going to take us now into chapter 3 and read the first 10 verses.
And Moshe was shepherding the flock of Yitro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the back of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of Elohim. And the messenger of Yahweh appeared to him in the flame of fire from the midst of the bush. And he looked and saw the bush burning with fire, but the bush was not consumed. And Moshe said, "Let me turn aside now and see this great sight, why the bush does not burn." And Yahweh saw that he turned aside to see. And Elohim called to him from the midst of the bush and said, "Moshe, Moshe." And he said, "Here I am." And he said, "Do not come near here. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place in which you are standing is set apart ground." And he said, "I am the Elohim of your father, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Yitzchak, and the Elohim of Yaakov." And Moshe hid his face, for he was afraid to look at Elohim. And Yahweh said, "I have indeed seen the oppression of my people who are in Mitzrayim, and have heard their cry because of their slave drivers, for I know their sorrows. And I have come down to deliver them from the hand of the Mitzrites, and to bring them up from the land to a good and spacious land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And now, see, the cry of the children of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Mitzrites oppress them. And now come, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Mitzrayim."
All right, thank you, Sarah Beth. Okay, Rick. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Rick, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Rick, you're going to take us from verse 11 to the end of the chapter.
And Moshe said to Elohim, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh, and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Mitzrayim?" And he said, "Because I am with you. And this is to you the sign that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Mitzrayim, you are to serve Elohim on this mountain." And Moshe said to Elohim, "See, when I come to the children of Israel and say to them, 'The Elohim of your fathers has sent me to you,' and they say to me, 'What is his name?' what shall I say to them?" And Elohim said to Moshe, "I am that which I am." And he said, "Thus you shall say to the children of Israel, 'I am has sent me to you.'" And Elohim said further to Moshe, "Thus you are to say to the children of Israel, 'Yahweh Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Yitzhak, and the Elohim of Yaakov has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my remembrance to all generations. Go, and you shall gather the elders of Israel together, and say to them, Yahweh, Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, of Yitzhak, and of Yaakov, appeared to me, saying, I have indeed visited you, and seen what is done to you in Mitzrayim. And I say, I am bringing you up out of the affliction of Mitzrayim to the land of the Canaanite, and the Hittite, and the Amorite, and the Perizzite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite, to a land flowing with milk and honey. And they shall listen to your voice, and you shall come, you and the elders of Israel, to the sovereign of Mitzrayim. And you shall say to him, Yahweh Elohim of the Hebrews has met with us. And now please let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness to slaughter to Yahweh our Elohim. But I know that the sovereign of Mitzrayim is not going to let you go, not even by a strong hand. And I shall stretch out my hand and strike Mitzrayim with all my wonders which I shall do in its midst. And after that he shall let you go. And I shall give this people favor in the eyes of the Mitzrites. And it shall be that when you go, you shall not go empty-handed. But every woman shall ask from her neighbor and from the stranger in her house objects of silver and objects of gold and garments. And you shall put them on your sons and on your daughters, and shall plunder the Mitzrites.
Amen. Amen. Okay, thank you, Rick. All right, next up, Gabe. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Gabe who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, you're going into chapter 4 and read the first 17 verses.
And Moshe answered and said, And if they do not believe me, nor listen to my voice, and say, Yahweh has not appeared to you, and Yahweh said to him, What is that in your hand? And he said, A rod. And he said, Throw it on the ground. So he threw it on the ground, and it became a serpent, and Moshe fled from it. And Yahweh said to Moshe, Reach out your hand and seize it by the tail. So he reached out his hand and took out a hold of it, and it became a rod in his hand, so that they believed that Yahweh, Elohim of their fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Yitzhak, and the Elohim of Jacob has appeared to you. And Yahweh said to him again, Now put your hand in your bosom. And he put his hand in his bosom, and when he took it out, and see, his hand was leprous, like snow. And he said, Put your hand in your bosom again. So he put his hand in his bosom again, and drew it out of his bosom, and see, it was restored like his other flesh. And it shall be, if they do not believe you, nor listen to the voice of the first sign, they shall believe the voice of the latter sign. And it shall be, if they do not believe even these two signs, or listen to your voice, that you shall take water from the river and pour it on the dry land. And the water which you take from the river shall become blood on dry land. And Moshe said to Yahweh, O Yahweh, I am not a man of words, neither before nor since you have spoken to your servant, for I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. And Yahweh said to him, Who has made man's mouth, or who makes dumb or deaf or seeing or blind? Is not I, Yahweh? And now go, and I shall be with your mouth and teach you what to say. But he said, O Elohim, please send by the hand of whom you would send. And the displeasure of Elohim burned against Moshe. And he said, Is not Aaron the Levite, your brother? I know that he speaks well, and see, he has also come out to meet you. And when he sees you, he shall be glad in his heart. And you shall speak to him and put the words in his mouth. And I am with your mouth and with his mouth, and I shall teach you what to do. And he shall speak for you to the people, and it shall be that he shall be a mouth for you, and you shall be an Elohim for him. And take his rod in your hand with which you shall do the signs.
Amen. Amen. Excellent job. Thank you, Gabe. All right, Shira. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Shira, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, take us now from verse 18 to the end of the chapter.
Then Moshe went and returned to Yether, his father-in-law, and said to him, "Please let me go and return to my brothers who are in Mitzrayim, to see whether they are still alive." And Yitro said to Moshe, "Go in peace." And Yahweh said to Moshe in Midian, "Go, return to Mitzrayim, for all the men are dead who sought your life." So Moshe took his wife and his sons and set them on a donkey, and he returned to the land of Mitzrayim. And Moshe took the rod of Elohim in his hand. And Yahweh said to Moshe, "As you go back to Mitzrayim, see that you do all those wonders before Pharaoh, which I have put in your hand. But I am going to strengthen his heart, so that he does not let the people go. And you shall say to Pharaoh, 'Thus said Yahweh, Yisrael is my son, my firstborn. So I say to you, let my son go to serve me. But if you refuse to let him go, see, I am killing your son, your firstborn.' And it came to be on the way in the lodging place that Yahweh met him and sought to kill him. And Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and threw it at Moshe's feet and said, 'You are indeed a bridegroom of blood to me.' So he let him go. Then she said, 'You are a bridegroom of blood because of the circumcision.' And Yahweh said to Aharon, 'Go to meet Moshe in the wilderness.' And he went and met him on the mountain of Elohim and kissed him. Moshe then told Aharon all the words of Yahweh who had sent him, and all the signs which he had commanded him. And Moshe went with Aharon and gathered together all the elders of the children of Yisrael. And Aharon spoke all the words which Yahweh had spoken to Moshe. Then he did the signs before the eyes of the people. And the people believed, and they heard that Yahweh had visited the children of Yisrael, and that he had looked on their affliction. And they bowed their heads and did obeisance.
Amen. Amen. Okay, Kathy? And I'm going to need one more. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Kathy, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family, and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Kathy, you're going to take us into chapter 5 and read verses 1 through 12.
And afterwards Moshe and Aharon went in and said to Pharaoh, "Thus said Yahweh, Elohim of Israel, let my people go, so that they celebrate a festival to me in the wilderness." And Pharaoh said, "Who is Yahweh, that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? I do not know Yahweh, nor am I going to let Israel go." And they said, "The Elohim of the Hebrews has met with us. Please let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness and slaughter to Yahweh our Elohim, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with the sword." But the sovereign of Mitzrayim said to them, "Moshe and Aaron, why do you take the people from their work? Get back to your burdens." And Pharaoh said, "See, the people of the land are many now, and you make them cease from their burdens." And the same day Pharaoh commanded the slave drivers of the people and their foremen, saying, "You are no longer to give the people straw to make bricks as before. Let them go and gather straw for themselves, and lay on them the required amount of bricks which they made before. Do not diminish it, for they are idle. That is why they cry out, saying, 'Let us go slaughter to our Elohim.' Let more work be laid on the men, so that they labor in it and not pay attention to the words of falsehood. And the slave drivers of the people and their foremen went out and spoke to the people, saying, Thus said Pharaoh, I do not give you straw. Go take straw for yourselves wherever you find it, for your work shall not be diminished. And the people were scattered in all the land of Mitzrayim to gather stubble for straw.
Oops, that's okay. I'll take the last one. All right, he who blessed our fathers, Abraham, never mind. I'll read the last one. And the slave drivers were hurrying them on, saying, Complete your work, your daily amount, as when there was straw. Also the foremen of the children of Israel, whom Pharaoh's slave drivers had set over them, were beaten and were asked, Why have you not completed your task in making bricks both yesterday and today as before? And the foreman of the children of Israel came and cried out to Pharaoh, saying, Why do you treat your servants this way? There is no straw given to your servants, and they say to us, Make bricks. And see, your servants are beaten, but your own people are at fault. But he said, You are idle, you are idle. That is why you say, Let us go and slaughter to Yahweh. So now go, work, and straw is not given to you, but deliver the amount of bricks. And the foreman of the children of Israel saw that they were in trouble after it was said, You are not to diminish your daily amount of bricks. And when they came out from Pharaoh, they met Moshe and Aaron, who stood there to meet them. And they said to them, Let Yahweh look on you and judge, because you have made us loathsome in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of his servants, to give a sword in their hand to kill us. And Moshe returned to Yahweh and said, Why have you done evil to this people? Why did you send me? For ever since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to this people, and you have not delivered your people at all. And Yahweh said to Moshe, Now see what I do to Pharaoh, for with a strong hand he is going to let them go, and with a strong hand he is going to drive them out of his land. Amen. Amen. Give me a second to get this. There we go. All right, that was the good job on all the readers there. Except for that last guy, he was just okay. Closing prayer. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam natah b'tochenu. Baruch atah Yahweh noten haTorah. Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh your Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us a Torah of truth and has planted eternal life in our midst. Blessed are you, Yahweh, giver of the Torah. Amen. 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 All right. How many we got on there now, Manning? 242. Okay. Awesome. Fantastic. Great. Welcome, all of you out there. Okay, so real quickly, for those of you that are out there, in case you might have missed the announcements, we do this every week, every Tuesday, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. In case you came on board and wondered when we started at 8. We also have a youth program doing the same thing. The youth program is free. It's on our website, MTOI.org. There will be no new lessons for those that are following the Parsha Pearls MTOI program for the next 6 or 7 portions as they kind of readjust a few things that we needed to readjust, but you can still get access to the ones from the last 2 years. So those are still available. Next leadership meeting is on the 19th. I think that an email should have gone out tonight to let you guys know about that. Also, Rosh Chodesh for Shvat will be January the 26th. On that Sunday night, we'll have a meal, and then we'll also have an 8 o'clock Easter. We'll broadcast we're not going to broadcast the meal. I wish we could somehow get it to you, but we can't. But we are at 8 o'clock going to do a Rosh Chodesh service. March 10th is Purim. We'll be doing on that night, it's a Torah study night. We'll also do a little bit of something for Purim. And then Passover is April 8th through 16th. Please get your application in as soon as you can. We already have, Stacia, how many? 161 people registered. Okay, so that's excellent. Okay? All right, that's going to cover it for announcements. Okay, so this is where we do a discussion. We do a little Midrash about what we read today. The idea is that we would start in chapter 1 and work our way to chapter 6, kind of keep it as chronological as we can. That's not a strict rule, but it does help us with the flow of the story if we do that. Now, for those of you that are online, I do ask that you would please be respectful of Manny, and I'm hoping Kurt's in there as well, that you respect their leadership in the room, okay, and allow them, because this is the part where it sometimes gets a little unhinged, okay? Please respect that this is a congregational study, not just an open public, debate about whatever you believe Scripture should, mean. But we do want to discuss it. We do want you to have a chance to make comments and ask questions. And those here, if you do that, if you raise your hand, Steve will bring around the mic. Let's try to do, as always, to look for what you can see and how, and what we just read, and how that could relate to you today. What can you see in this that you go, wow, I see something that's going on in my life that sort of matches up with this, or something I can glean from this and use it in my walk today. All right, that's kind of what we're looking for. All right, who wants to go first? And if nobody raises their hand, I've got enough to go for hours, so it's okay. Okay, chapter 1 first, go ahead.
Chapter 1, okay. For me, I got the, around 12, verse 12. It said, the more they were afflicted, the more they increased. So my question is this how we endure, or do we fold up like a lawn chair and run? Kind of like you were saying earlier.
That's right. So what is your response to affliction? Okay, see, Yahweh allows affliction because it should help you to grow. Okay? It's part of your growth process. All right? You want to really get your plants and trees and things, you prune them. Think of that as like affliction. You're literally cutting off things, but then they flourish and they grow more, and it somehow it helps. Okay, so removing or through the affliction, we grow. Good point. Anybody else for chapter 1? Okay, Rick. And Manny, if you get something for 1, you can raise your hand too. We'll bring it back to you, okay?
Yeah, my question for chapter 1 was in verse 15. Very seldom is in the scriptures, unless it's really significant, is a woman's name mentioned. And it mentions the midwives Shifra and Puah. So I'm wondering what the significance was there, and if Shifra is the same as Zipporah. Is that just a different pronunciation of the same name, or?
No, not likely at all. But the thing is that what you have here is that these women are being honored because of what they do at the end of the chapter. Okay? Just a couple of verses later, they are fearful of Elohim rather than being fearful of Pharaoh. Because remember, these are Hebrew midwives. Okay? So it says in verse 17, the midwives feared Elohim. So because of their fear, they're getting the honor of having their names mentioned here. Okay? Look, if your name shows up in this book, it's either because you did something honorable or something shameful. If you did something that's sort of just, we'll call it lukewarm or nothing or neutral, or you don't really get mentioned. These are the significant events, positive and negative. Okay? All right, who's next? All right, chapter 1, verse 8. It's my turn. All right? Okay, so a new sovereign arose over Mitzrayim who did not know Yosef. So, look, if Yosef was, as we believe he was, this incredibly significant historical figure, he certainly would have known of Yosef to some degree or other. He had no relationship with Yosef or with his descendants. Now, you got to also remember that there was, at that time, and through many, many centuries, a continuous change of ownership and authority in the land of Egypt. This is a land in the crossroads, between Africa and the sort of Middle East going up into, southern areas of Europe, okay? And there was a constant taking over of Egypt. Egypt had different authorities, different leaderships. So you have to understand that there is a likelihood that you have part of that happening here. Okay, so you have the Hyksos, dynasty that might have been come. There's a lot of argument as to what time this really was in history, but you have to remember, in this time in history, there was this pattern of Egypt being taken over. Okay, just like you have the same problem with Israel in that same area being taken over. That whole Middle Eastern area, northern, eastern tip of Africa there going into the Middle East area, there's a lot of other bigger groups of people that like to come and take over. Okay, so when it says that there was now a sovereign who didn't know Joseph, he wasn't a part of that Joseph deal, could have been one of these other nations, okay? And he certainly didn't from the way and we'll see this play out in this chapter. The word knowing is a very relational word, okay? So we see that there, that they did not know Joseph. Now, we also going to see in chapter 2, we'll see that Elohim heard of their affliction and he knew, okay? He knew what was going on. There's a relational thing going there, okay? There's going to be, in several places we're going to see this. All right. So in verse 17, again, we see that, I was going to mention again that the women, these are Hebrew women who actually feared. Now think about the position they were in. So you think that you fear Elohim, but under what kind of pressures? Pharaoh told them, oh, you don't listen to Pharaoh, what are you likely facing? Death. I mean, really, death or jail or torture or whatever, for some long period of time. And these women feared Elohim, not Pharaoh. Okay? And so they did not do what Pharaoh said because they feared Elohim. So that's an important thing to be pointing out at that point, that section there. Excuse me. And in verse, let's see, I think that's the cover for verses in chapter 1. Okay, chapter 2, Sarah Beth. Oh, I'm sorry, one more in chapter 1. In verse 12, because I wrote notes from this time and notes from the other time, they're a little bit out of numerical order here. In verse 12 it says, but the more they afflicted them, the more they increased, etc. But you have to understand that they were serving with harshness. Okay? Verse 13, I'm sorry, not verse 12. Okay, and the Mitzrayites made the children of Israel serve with harshness. Now look, you need to understand that we are working with Rome, we're working with Pharaoh, we're dealing with whatever metaphor you want to work on. You are not at this point dealing with harshness. And imagine if you had to go through this like they did. And we do look at this as a type shadow type of thing, don't we? So we expect that our exodus will match with the first, because the greater will be like the first. And it says it will be so great in all of its aspects that people won't even be talking about the first one anymore. So we can naturally assume that this is talking about the level of the signs and the wonders, which we can expect when you look at Revelation, are far and above what you maybe see here in Exodus. Not to diminish what happened in Exodus, but we're talking on a much more grand scale. This is happening to Egypt, that will be happening to the entire planet. Now, but why aren't we also recognizing the metaphor that if it was harsh for them, it'll be harsh for us? See, we think we got it tough now. But the serving that they did was with harshness. It wasn't just serving. And yet, when we get to later chapters, when he says, you are idle, and they're all whining and saying, oh, no, wait, why'd you do this to us? We had it so good. It's starting already. They're not even leaving yet. But they were already serving with harshness. Remember that when we get to the later chapters, and we're talking about them saying, oh, in chapter 5, you're idle. And they go to Moses and Aaron and say, look what you've done. What do you mean, look what we've done? You were already serving with harshness. I mean, they were beating on you brutally. Yes, it got a little worse. But horrendously awful plus 1 is still horrendously awful without the plus 1, But that's all it was at that point was, horrifically awful plus 1. Okay? So it's not like we're talking about it was okay and now it's horrendously awful. Okay, so that's why we have chapter 1 to tell us what it was like. All right? Okay. Chapter 2, Sarah Beth.
Verse 4 says that the sister stood at a distance to see what would happen. It just struck me that this should be a very, the blue mother concept. That should be a very scary moment both for the whole family. Putting a baby in a river is not an easy thing. And it just reads like it's just this calm, normal thing. And she's just standing at a distance. It reminded me of the stand still in the sea.
Amen. You know, we've all seen the horrific pictures like on 9/11 or whatever, when there's a building that's burning or something happening like that and people are jumping out of the windows. Well, why would you jump out? You're going to die or you're going to burn, you know what I'm saying? Well, because you think, well, who knows, there's even a chance. Staying in the building, there's no chance. So you jump out. Who knows? Maybe some miracle you could land on something and somehow something, whatever. There's nothing else you can do. So she's put this baby in the river saying, well, I already know he's dead otherwise. So at least here there's a chance. What kind of chance? I mean, look, we're putting him in the Nile. You know, it's a fairly large river and it's got all kinds of things going on and creatures that could be a problem and everything else. Okay? But you're putting this child. But I know I have guaranteed death over here. So I'm going to go and try and do something and just put the baby in the Creator's hands, you know? And so that's an amazing moment. And then, of course, the sister wants to watch to see what would happen, you know? Okay. Next. Rick?
Yeah, Moshe was born to Levite parents. So could there have been some emunah going on there among them putting him in the ark and putting him in, in the Nile? And the second question, and then I'll let you go ahead and answer them both, was regarding the naming of Moshe. Pharaoh's daughter named him Moshe. So was that a Hebrew name then, or did she name him an Egyptian name? Was that, maybe you can shed some light on that.
Okay, I just did about 11 parts on light and darkness, and you want me to shed light on that. I had the same thought, and I don't remember when I've looked it up in the past what I found. Okay, so I don't have an answer for that as far as whether it was originally a Egyptian word that would have been then. You have very few languages that don't have other words mixed in from other languages over time. Okay? Because you find even Yeshua, who we know would have spoke Hebrew as well as Greek and whatever would have been going on in those days, using Aramaic. And sometimes the Aramaic gets mixed in very, smoothly in with the Hebrew. And we have things like that happen all the time with languages, okay? So it's not really clear to me. I don't remember. So, I don't think it matters necessarily, but it's an interesting point because I actually thought of it today when we were reading it. I thought the same question. I'm wondering what that was in terms of it being. Now, let's go back to the Levite thing, okay? The Levite thing is interesting. I think that it is a precursor to some of the things maybe prophetically pointing. They put, verse 3, she took an ark of wicker and coated it with tar and pitch. Same language as in verse, let's see, where's my notes? Chapter 6 and verse 14 with the making of Noah's ark. He was told to take and build it with gopher wood and use tar and pitch. So this was an ark meant to deliver. In our picture, we're picturing, something is going to be saved or delivered from something big, something traumatic. Also, when we think of the ark, we think of like the Ark of the Covenant. And of course, the Levites had that responsibility. And so here's a Levite person making an ark and putting Moses, the lawgiver, in a place that the law would be eventually anyway. So you got a lot of ark connections here. All right? So it's an interesting. So just, I was going to bring that in anyway, so I'm glad you brought that in. We'll forget about the part about the Hebrew word okay. Anybody else in chapter 2? Okay. My turn again. So just to finish out what we said earlier from earlier on when I said that in the chapter 2, we have Elohim in verse 24, hearing their groaning, and Elohim remembered his covenant with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. Elohim looked on the children of Israel, and Elohim knew. Now, let's talk about what's going on there. First of all, Elohim does not have a memory problem. Okay? We talk about this during Passover in the Haggadah that I wrote for the service, that it was something that appeared and this is where we could take this in our own lives, it appeared in their suffering that Elohim was not paying much attention. Because of his apparent silence, his apparent lack of activity in their lives, they thought that he had forgotten them. They were like, well, where is Elohim anyway? And we could certainly think those things after 2,000 years, right, since Yeshua. So we could certainly be like, well, where is he in all this? What is he waiting on? I mean, they were spending a good long time there in Egypt going, why not? You have the same line of the rabbi being asked at the end of Fiddler on the Roof, Rabbi, wouldn't this be a good time for Messiah to return? And he says, well, I guess we'll have to wait for him somewhere else. That timing is Yahweh's timing, whatever that is. We would love it to be our timing. And so here, when it's talking about in chapter 2 and verse 24 and 25, is that Elohim, he knew this was the time. He knew the people. He was aware of what was happening to them. He was aware of the groanings, the fightings, and the harshness and all those things that were going on. But it was all part of his plan, not our plan. His ways are above our ways so high that we would, as the heavens above the earth, etc., we would not understand. And so this verse is there to say, look, he's mentioning that because, and he's always connecting again, the promises to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They're connecting here in this section here. This whole episode and what was about to come forward was not because of anything those guys in Egypt had done to deserve or earn or anything. This was because he promised. Okay, now, think of this like the salvation model that I've given you. Nobody's earned the deliverance that's about to come. But what they do with it after he gives it to them is up to them. And only very few, 2 of the older generation, make it into the land. He's about to give them free a deliverance. Okay, and that's where the guy attacked me and said, well, there you go. If you understood from the Hebrews only put the blood on the doorpost once saved, always saved. Well, yeah, he's going to save all of them here, but then they're going to now need to do something, otherwise they don't end up in the land. If they had obeyed and submitted and the covenant of following his voice and done what he said and trusted him, they would have gone right in the land and none of the nonsense would have happened. But what they chose was their own ways, their fears, their doubts, etc. They moaned and groaned. They blasphemed Elohim. You'll see this later on when we get in the book of Numbers. They literally blaspheme him. Because he said, hey, go and do this, it's no problem. And they started saying, oh no, he's sending us to a place we're all going to die. That's blaspheming him. Okay? So that's slander, we'll call it that. They're slandering him, they're misrepresenting him. I think that's the way I describe it every year when we go through it. It's a slander. Okay? They're misrepresenting him. So here we have a reminder right at the beginning of all this, before it really goes bad. I mean, it's already bad, but before the very end, he's telling you, look, Elohim knew. He knew his timing. He knew it was now time. And he also did it because he promised in a unilateral way. There was no obligation on the other side. He just promised he would do these things for the descendants of Abraham. And then he transferred that promise to Yitzhak, and he transferred then to Yaakov. And so this is our foundation for the rest of the story. That's why he's giving us this here. Just so you know, it's not like, Elohim was just hanging out in heaven and been like, oh, wow, look, those guys are in trouble. Those are my guys. I forgot about them. Man, I better do something. Remember, there was a promise that his descendants, Abraham's descendants, would be strangers in a land not their own, and they would serve with harshness for 400 years. There was a prophecy. We know that sometimes those prophecies are short enough that, somebody named Daniel was counting it down when there was a promise that he knew, a prophecy that he knew, and he knew that it had been that many years that he was told to wait. So he had expectancy in a short promise. Well, in a 400-year promise, it's a little bit tough because you're not going to live long enough to be the one who heard the promise made. It's a little bit different deal. Okay, chapter 3. My turn. It seems like we got a lot of that today. All right, chapter 3. I think it's important that we cover the name thing just a little bit. So in verse 13, Moses says to Elohim, see, when I come to the children of Israel and say to them, the Elohim of your fathers has sent me to you, and they say to me, what is his name? Now, first of all, he doesn't know this relationship well enough. I mean, he's coming through Egypt. Now, he was raised, and I should have brought this up. When he, I think I added that verse in my notes here. In chapter 2 and verse 11, I'm sorry, I skipped over that. You know, it says that he saw one of his brothers being beaten. So sometimes we don't realize, you know, how long he would have known that he had a relationship with the Israelites. Okay, because it says that he was given to a Hebrew woman to nurse. She gave him back to Pharaoh's daughter. We don't have a story here like in the Ten Commandments movie where all of a sudden somehow he connects the dots that somehow he's a Hebrew. And he sees this Mitzrayim beating a Hebrew, one of his brothers. So he had some understanding. Okay, so I think that was an important thing to just keep in the back of our minds. And then we get here into chapter 3, and he's trying to now tell his brothers that the Elohim of their forefathers sent him. Now, when you live in a world full of gods, full of Elohim, and every one of them has a name, the natural thing is, well, what if they ask me his name? What am I going to tell them? And again, we're hearing from a man who obviously didn't have enough relationship with his brothers to have known that there was or wasn't a way to pronounce a name. He did not know that part of their relationship because that people under oppression for all those years were no longer really that vertically connected. I can only assume that in that kind of bondage, they were not focused that vertically. And so he says, well, what am I going to say? Now, they would know when he said the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they would know that. That was the way Elohim was always known, as the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So Elohim says to Moses, I am that which I am. And he said, thus you shall say to the children of Israel, I am has sent me to you. And the Hebrew doesn't really play out so cleanly that way. It really has the idea, I exist, I am that which I... In other words, I am existence. I exist. But not just I exist like I'm alive, I'm here, but I am existence. And so that's a concept that goes beyond the stone and the wood and the animal gods that they worshipped. I am existence itself. That was powerful. Now also realize that somewhere in the I am that I am, it is, I'm guessing at this point, I never said this out loud before, just a thought I had today was, you know, we say Yahweh, other people say Yahuwah, Jehovah, this and that and the other thing. What if that was a burying of the name beyond the fact that when he gave his name to Moses and Moses gave this somehow the I am that I am, somewhere in there that is his name is somehow there. And that's what the high priest knew to say when they were doing their blessings and everything else. And that's why we don't have that name and the power of it the way it is. And when Yeshua used that exact way, it knocked everybody down on their feet. Because they said to him, we're looking for Yeshua of Nazareth. He said, I am. He didn't say, I am Yahweh like the way we would think. He didn't use the Yahweh we would think. So when we get all hung up on how we pronounce the name, I think we might all be getting it completely wrong. Remember, there's a name written on his thigh that nobody knows, not except him who has it. Okay? Nobody is perceived even. So let's not get too hung up on that part. He's saying just let them know that the one that is everything is the one who sent you. Okay? I am existence itself. Because we try to wrap our brain around, well, what was there before him? No, I am existence. Without me, there is no existence. How does a three-dimensional, four-dimensional being, like we have 3 dimensions plus time, and how do we fathom something that's not linear with an end and a beginning and a, all of that stuff that we're used to? We start, we're born, we live, we die. Before we were born, there was somebody else that gave birth to us, and there was somebody else. After us, there will be others. But how do we get to, at the beginning, we even go back in the Bible, in the beginning there was Adam and Chava. There wasn't anybody before that. But yet before that, there still was I am, existence itself. It's a powerful thought. Okay. All right, now we can go to, we're in chapter 3, which I said I was going to get to, and there's one more. Chapter 3 and verse 22 is a prophecy for later in chapter 11 and verse 2. When it says, but every woman shall ask for her neighbor and from the stranger in her house objects of silver and gold, etc., and you're going to, plunder the Mitzrites. You're not going to go out empty-handed. Okay. In verse 21, it says, you'll not go out empty-handed. Yes? You could do that soon, and actually he contacted me, says he doesn't need to be picked up till 10, so you got some time. Okay? Okay, so just to finish, so just remember when we do get to chapter 11, that in chapter 3, it was prophesied. Okay, 3:21 to 22 prophesies when they actually leave Egypt and they go and they actually do this. Just that's a little seed planting for later. All of you basically know the story, you know that's coming, but just you can see that he actually said it here. Sometimes you forget that it was actually said this far in advance, and then it actually plays out. Okay, now you can go to chapter 4, and Manny, you can get your questions if you want to use your list there. All right, we'll go ahead and we'll get you the mic, and you can go ahead. Let's get you to do a bunch of those, because I know you're going to help me out and go pick up my son who's working.
Thank you, sir.
Such an interesting concept. I have to wrap my brain around. My boy now works. And some of you are thinking, you think that's bad? I got a 30-year-old on the couch in the basement, so I'm still hoping we'll do that one day. Okay. Well, mine's 16, and I'm glad he's working, so yeah.
Okay, Helen Thrasher would like to know, from the death of Joseph to Exodus chapter 1, can you tell me how many years have gone by?
I can tell you not only that, but I can tell you how many days, minutes, and seconds. No, I'm kidding. We don't have that actually in any kind of clarity. There are some places where there's some genealogies that are given that can give us some guesses. When it talks about Moses and his parents and some of the generational things, I don't know the answer to that. Okay, I believe that from the time Abraham was told to the time that you get to that point, it's about 400 years. I don't think that they're in Egypt over 100 and it's under 200, I think, or whatever it is. So that's part of why we have some discrepancies in the way people count the calendar and the way they count that time. I don't believe them to have been in Egypt 400 years. Okay? So I think that's kind of what he's getting at, the question, or whoever asked that question. But it's about 3 generations there. It's not going to be under 200 years.
Okay, Renaissance Entertainment wants to know on Shemoth 2:24,
right?
What does it mean Elohim remembered? I think we can all agree he never forgets. Thank you.
Yep, I covered that, so we can go on to the next one.
Selena, sorry to leave questions, got to go. On 3:4, you've mentioned that Abraham knew Yahweh before he was called in Genesis 12:1. Did Moshe also know Yahweh before this?
Well, you got to remember, like I said, he was raised in the Hebrew community to a certain degree. He was familiar with some of the things that were going on. I don't know that he knew a name for him, but we just know that he was ready to receive when Yahweh called him, and he just said, "Here I am, hineni." Okay. Part of that's demonstrating not necessarily a literal conversation that was had, but showing you that he, like Abraham, was ready to do. He was ready to be sent. He was ready to be instructed. He said, "Here I am," and the way that hineni works is, "Here I am, whatever, how high, how far, what do you want me to do?" It's like when someone said, "When I tell you jump, you say how high." That's what he was ready for that. Okay.
Britt would like to know on Exodus 3:14, when Yahweh says, "I am that I am," did he say Yahweh? Is Yahweh short for "I am that I am," or why is it different?
I think I answered that. See, it's kind of like I preemptively hit some of these things.
Renaissance Entertainment, Shemoth 3:18. Why did Yahweh say they were just going to sacrifice to him when ultimately he was freeing them from Mitzrayim? This sounds like they were coming back.
That doesn't have a clarity there. This is just the way he was instructed to tell them. So look, they're going to go 3 days journey to slaughter to Yahweh. That's the way he decided to do it. I'm not really sure what to read into that otherwise. I think I've talked about it in the past and had a thought on that, but I'm not pulling it out at the moment.
Okay, on Exodus, Selena, Exodus 4:3. Maybe you understand this. The boys like Moshe fleeing from his own rod. 5:3, were they asking to keep a feast?
The 5:3 is the same as the other question. What was that part about the rod that you said?
It just says, Exodus 4:3, the boys like Moshe fleeing from his own rod.
Well, he's fleeing from it because it became a serpent. He wasn't expecting that. This is when Yahweh's first instructing him and trying to give him the signs. And so he says, well, throw down your rod. And he does, and it becomes a snake. What would you do? You might jump and flee a little bit too. Okay? But the chapter 5 point is the same point from the other one about the 3 days journey. Look, at one point, Jacob says to Esau, you go and I'll meet you there, and then he goes the other way. Sometimes you got to start with at least getting yourself safe. Let us go 3 days journey. It's a lot easier than saying, just let us all go. We'll just let us go. Now later on, he says to Pharaoh, you need to let everybody go. Okay? So I'm not sure why that plays out that way, but that's just the way it plays out.
Okay, Randall McFarland, question on Exodus 4:15 through 17. Could this be a prophecy of the coming Messiah and to help us see the relationship and structure of Elohim?
Look, we could read a lot of things in this part of and I didn't cover that, but we could read a lot of things in this chapter, in that section about, because I did mark down that we would talk about the idea that, Moses was to be Elohim and, Aaron was to be his voice. And so there's clearly, a father, son, Yeshua and the Father sort of relationship there, Yeshua being the voice, the Father being the Elohim. But later on, we're also going to see that Moses was Elohim to Pharaoh. And so, we see there are certain things that we see playing out in terms of us understanding in these metaphors the roles that were being played. Not literally that he was Elohim, but where the true source was Elohim and Aaron was just the spokesperson. Now, you notice also in here the total vertical alignment. Moses was the voice and Yahweh was the Elohim. And then Aaron comes under that alignment and Aaron becomes the voice and Moses becomes the Elohim. Okay, then Aaron, if you were to train the next, Aaron would be the Elohim and the next one would be the voice. It's a disciple-student sort of pattern. Okay, so Yeshua was the Elohim and James or John or whoever, Peter, would have been the voice. Does that make sense? Are we following that connection? Okay, good point. I didn't have that in my notes, but I like it. Go ahead. It was good for you to reference that.
It's pretty awesome. All right, Olivier and Janet Hoffman on chapter 4:22. This is a question from Andrea Hoffman. I thought Yeshua was the firstborn. Why does Yahweh call Israel his firstborn?
He refers to Israel as his firstborn in many places. You'll find this also, believe it or not, in Isaiah 53 and other places, okay? So, because Israel as a nation is a firstborn, okay? The firstborn of many nations. But so in type and shadow and metaphor, Israel is the firstborn, okay? As an individual, we could say there's an individual as the first one. Like, of course, Jacob was firstborn and then he had all these children. And then the children became a nation. We could look back to Adam and then we could look down the line. Now, by firstborn also, what do we understand firstborn to represent? The one who inherits everything. Okay? What does Paul even tell us? He says, deliverance is of the Jew or the Israelite first. because they're the firstborn. They're the older brother. They're the root. When he was talking to the Gentiles. Now remember, he's doing this in the context of that, not saying the Jew is more important than any other of the 12 tribes. Just saying in his context of trying to give a metaphor, look in what the reference is that he's trying to make. If I'm talking to a Gentile, you need to know that in the context where there's only Jews and Gentiles, the rest of Israel has been lost and scattered, you need to know salvation is of them first. He's saying here, Israel is my firstborn. Israel is my son. They inherit everything. Now, you want to become a part of it. That's the cool part. You can inherit it too. And then we're told in the New Testament that if we are Abraham's children, we're also part of the promises and part of the heirs to the inheritance, like Isaac was. Okay? So that all starts to fit together. All right, next question.
Okay, on this next section, we have a ton regarding chapter 4, 24 through 26, all wanting to know. I mean, the questions vary. So, Yahweh met and sought to kill who? Another question is, not sure why Yahweh is trying to kill his son and how it's connected to circumcision. Why didn't Moshe take his family with him during the wilderness time, or did he?
All right, let's just do this. It's in my notes, and I should have preemptively thrown it out there because I got a big question mark on it. Nobody knows. This is one of those sections that everybody's guessing, okay? You could read a lot of things into this. It would all be a guess, and none of it necessarily all that helpful. I mean, it seems it's one of those out-of-place, odd things that we just shrug our shoulders, okay? You know, here he is, he's about to go, and then all of a sudden, his wife has a problem, and she cuts the foreskin, and she does these other things. I mean, you know, we could read a lot of different things into this, and we probably would be wrong about most of them. So I've chosen over the years to say, that's interesting. I'm glad that happened because I'm sure it was important. I have no idea why. Okay? By the way, this probably is not the only place in your Bible that you go, oh, wow, that's pretty interesting. I accept that it happened. I have no idea why. You probably have lots of things that fit into that category, so it's okay. So I like these things when they come up occasionally so that you can accept the frustration of not knowing. Because that's part of our journey, is that not knowing is okay. Okay, get past your Gnostic leanings of needing to know. Especially needing to know the more that it's more obscure, the more that less people do understand it, the more you want to know it. That's sort of that more Gnostic hidden, I need to know, you know, not that just stuff everybody knows. I want to know stuff that most people don't know. You got to get past that. That's a trap that leads down a path that doesn't go in a good place. Okay? Be curious, look things up, study the best you can, but be okay not getting the answer. If it's something you don't need to know in terms of function, there's nothing going on here in those 3 verses that you need to know to function today. Okay? You're not Moses being sent to Egypt. You don't know what was going on circumcision-wise at the time. You don't know who's actually being referenced to who. You know, when she throws the foreskin at him, at his feet, and she goes, "You are indeed a bridegroom of blood to me," is she yelling at him the way it might look with an exclamation point? Or is she saying, "You and I have a blood, we have a blood thing"? There's no real way to know what she means. Because, like, you know what it's like today? Reading texts. Because you've never gotten in trouble reading one of those, have you? You know, if I wasn't so concerned about your sensitivities to language that somebody might use that might be colorful, I'd recommend a little comic skit that you can find on YouTube where 2 comedians are doing one of those text things. And one is like flipping out, and the other one's thinking, oh, how nice and how sweet. And they're both reading the same text as they're going back and forth, and the one is getting angrier and like ready to shoot somebody, and the other one is thinking, oh, this is so great. No, everything is cool between us and whatever. It's the tone and the way the other person put a voice to the text. So we have no idea reading this necessarily. You know, sometimes it's hard to know what's really being said and what the tone is. And who's actually being addressed and for what reason. So let's just leave it at that. But anyway, I thought it was a good question to ask because it's good to know that your teacher's not going to give you every answer and that I don't have all the answers. I would like to hope I have all the answers that you need. Okay? That's right. Now, just because I don't have an answer doesn't mean that you don't need it. I would just like to hope that if you need it, he will give me an answer. Okay? All right. Next question.
In the same two verses, Valentina Hoffman's asking why the son of Moshe was not circumcised prior to this event.
Same answer.
All right. Olivia and Janet Hoffman. Rabbi, the signs Yeshua did, water into wine, healings, and power, overseas storms, were these signs similar to the ones Moshe performed in Mitzrayim for the Israelites to know he was from Elohim?
Yes. Okay, I mean, they weren't similar events, but they were for the similar purpose. But I do want to bring out, if you notice that in verse 8 of chapter 4, the signs have voices. So don't always be hooked up on the idea of a voice being literal speaking. If they don't hear the voice of the first sign, they'll hear the voice of the second and third signs. In other words, receiving a message. Think of the voice as being the message. If they don't receive the message from the first sign that I am Elohim, then they'll certainly receive the voice of the second. In other words, it's a message. It's something trying to be delivered to you from above. So be careful that we don't always think of voice meaning you have to literally hear something, right? Because in verse 8, it actually says that. It says, and it shall be, if they do not believe you, nor listen to the voice of the first sign, they shall believe the voice of the latter sign. Okay, be careful with that. I think that was really cool, so I wrote that one down today. Okay, what else you got?
Pam Seaford, chapter 4, 25. Did Yahweh same thing, never mind.
That's the same one again.
Yeah. So I'm going to shotgun it for the ones that are left here. Exodus 1 through 1:8. You have talked about situational awareness, and Pharaoh seemed to be willfully ignorant of the situation in Egypt. That ignorance may have led him to becoming self-serving, and I think her message got cut off at that point.
Let's just go back to the first the response I gave that earlier, which is this is likely either a pharaoh from another nation that came and took over, or generationally late enough that just did not have a relationship with the Israelites. Okay? And the representative of the Israelites was Joseph. Because remember, the reason Israel was given what it was given was because Pharaoh was honoring Joseph. He didn't know any of the rest of the Israelites, he could care less. But because of the way things were in terms of family relations, you would honor someone's family if you wanted to honor them and that kind of thing. So Pharaoh honored Joseph's family and honored Jacob because of Joseph's stuff, and he held him in high esteem. This was now a Pharaoh that had no relationship with any of that. So I don't think it's any willful ignorance or any kind of thing like that. I think it's just saying he just didn't care. He's like, I don't know these people. I didn't offer them anything. They're not related to me in any way. Why do I care what they're doing? I just look at them as a threat. Look at how many there are. I mean, what if they joined the other guys? Because remember, they had these battles all the time. So when the next one comes, what if they side with them? Because remember, these things were happening on every so many 10 to 30 or 100 years. I mean, they were happening on a regular enough basis. It could be 100, it could be 10, it happened often enough. You see this throughout the prophecies where, people look at King Ahaz, in Isaiah when they have the prophecy about the birth. And he's afraid that the kingdom of the north and these other people are going to come down and they're going to attack him. Why? Because this stuff happened all the time. We read about the Maccabees, the Greeks had charge. We read about Yeshua, the Romans had charge. You see these things go on. Assyria had charge, Babylon had charge. The land went through lots of different owners. Same thing happened in Egypt. Okay? Very common to have those things happen. And Egypt, by the way, was under Rome at one point too. Okay? All right, go ahead.
Jim Januska would like to know, Teresa is asking in verse 4:18 why Moses' father-in-law's name is spelled differently.
Why his name is spelled differently?
Yeah, the father-in-law.
Yethro? Spelled the same in my... What do you mean spelled differently?
Spelled differently in ours.
Oh, in the new translation, in the 2009? Okay, because mine doesn't have that. Let me look that up. I have no idea what you're talking about because I have not seen that. I'm reading out of the 98 version. Chapter 4 what? In the footnote, it says the title meaning excellency. But then later on in the verse, it actually has again, title meaning His Excellency. So it may be, again, just a different way of referring to that. I didn't catch that before because it's not in the older version. Okay.
That's it.
Okay. You're free to go get my son. For all of you on live stream, behave yourself. Kurt will take care of it, but we won't be able to take any more comments and questions from the live stream. Okay. Anybody else here locally? Steve, go ahead.
Okay, for chapter 4, I didn't get the verse, but I noticed that Moshe went to the leadership and to deliver the vision given from Yahweh instead of disseminated it to everybody. So there was a vertical alignment without even it being ordered.
Excellent, excellent. Let me just put that down for myself. So that's in 429. I'm just writing down. Okay, so I've told you this in the past many times. The vision is given to the leader. The leader then shares that vision with the next in line leaders or with the whole people. Okay, so here Moses had the vision and he came and shared it with the leaders, the elders. And then they would then need to share it with the people. So that is maintaining a proper vertical alignment. Now he also did something very important here. He was going into a place with existing structure, and he did not usurp the structure. In other words, he didn't bypass them and go directly to the people. Okay, because he was not yet established in authority. The elders were in authority. Remember, he had fled, and he was Egyptian as far as they were concerned, and a prince. So for him to now be there and be looked at in authority was a big change. So without usurping, which he could have, but he didn't, he came and he went to the elders and said, look, I have a message from Elohim, and I'm delivering it to you. And this is how we go. It's respectful. Okay? So that was a good point. Thank you, Steve. All right? Anybody else? Kathy? And then I've only got one or two more of my own, and that's it.
Well, it's one more about the circumcision thing.
Same answer. I'm kidding.
I was just wondering, was that because it was a foreign wife, was that her way of saying, when she says, I'm of your blood, was she wanting her sons to enter into covenant?
I don't know. I don't know how much that, Moses knew about these things. I don't know how much they were still able to do when they were in captivity, how much they did in Egypt. Okay, there's no saying about any of that. Okay, they weren't doing a lot of things, I'm sure, because they were slaves. And so, remember, he's now with the Midianites, and he gets his wife, and what they're keeping and not keeping. So we have a whole lot of possible, which is why I don't answer the question with any specificity, because there's so many different possible little pieces of this that could be at play that we're guessing. And, I really don't like to guess. I don't like to put anything out there that's just, now if I do guess, I usually will, if I guess, I try to make sure always to say, this is my best guess. But I only try to do that when I have no choice. I have to give an answer. Or something that's important that needs to be addressed. I just don't think this, while it was important enough to write in the book, is important for you at this point to understand as part of your walk. Okay? If it was, it would come up in more than one place. It would be much more specific, and we would be told what to do, when to do it, how to do it, etc. Okay? Now, the circumcision part, we know. We know to do this on the 8th day and how to do it, etc. So that we know. Okay, but what's going on here was more of a relational, interaction between her and her husband, and we don't really know. Okay? Craig? No, I'm not saying, well, she said, well, am I saying that the family wasn't Hebrew and they weren't practical? Well, look, being Hebrew and being slaves in Egypt, well, Zipporah they were Midianites. Okay? So what did they do? What didn't they do? How much did they understand? Because remember, they're not unrelated, when you go back in the genealogy, they're not unrelated to all of the players in the story, but we don't know where they were in the walk. We know Yithro was a priest of Midian. What did that mean? I don't know. Okay? So too many things that, again, when we come into contact with some of the people in the story that are not prime movers of the story, we sometimes have very shaky amounts of information. We have sketchy amounts of information. That's shaky, but sketchy. We really don't know. It's not clear. Okay? So I would like to avoid being dragged into trying to make a definitive idea on something I can't really have enough information. In school, you have these questions where choice E was not enough information. Okay, I like to choose that box, please. Okay, not enough information. Okay, anybody else? All right, let me wrap it up with, let's see, what did I leave off? In chapter 4 and verse 10, you got to love this guy, right? He goes, "Oh, Yahweh, I'm not a man of words, neither before nor since have you spoken to your servant, for I am slow of speech and slow of tongue," and yet the guy never stops talking. In the words of Tevye, for a man slow of tongue, he sure talked a lot. So we also don't know from this point forward, when we're told that Aaron would speak for him, how much that it says that Moses said, was it really Aaron speaking? Because now Aaron becomes his spokesman. Okay? Just like Moses said, "Thus said Yahweh." Okay, when he was Yahweh's spokesman. But it does say, "And Moses said," and Moses, okay, so did Moses speak or did Aaron? Because he says Aaron will be your mouth, he'll be your voice. So we don't know, it doesn't say. But we do see, though, is somebody who is at this point having a trust issue. Yahweh picked him, and he had not at this point fully embraced that if he chose me to do it, I must be capable of doing it. So he's throwing up all these excuses. Now, Jewish culture has, legends about, Moses, when he was a baby, he grabbed a hot coal and touched his mouth and messed up his lips or his tongue, or Moses did this or that. I mean, these are all things I heard in Hebrew school. Okay? So he had a speech impediment. He couldn't really speak well or whatever it was. Look, this sounds like a guy trying to say, why me? Don't pick me. I don't want to do it. Okay? And so he says, fine, I'll send you your brother and your brother will do it. I'll take away your excuses. Now, he didn't say, I'm going to send you your brother and you're going to do this before, because he picked him knowing he could do it. But he also knew that Moses was going to say no and he was going to send Aaron. But I'm just saying, this is, again, where is your trust? And he was struggling at the beginning here still. He had a trust issue, okay? And then what did Yahweh say? He said, now go and I shall be with your mouth and teach you what to say. See, anybody that, I feel like I'm in that role to a degree. I'm not saying I'm Moses, but the role of having to speak, all right? Anybody who has a microphone that's supposed to be doing this stuff has that role of having to speak. If they are doing it right, they should be trusting him to put the words in their mouth. The same as Moses. I come up and speak to you every week, twice a week, with not necessarily a fully written out anything, because I want to be able to allow him to decide what gets said. That doesn't mean I don't study it and I don't have all that material. Remember, the Ruach is, we talked about this in some of the other teachings, right? There to bring what's in there already to remembrance. But I'm going to allow him to choose what he brings to remembrance, what I need to talk about, what I need to say, but I had to put it in there in the first place. Okay? The material had to go in first. And so he's saying to Moses, don't worry, Moses, I'm going to teach you, the information is going to go in, and I'm going to give you what to say. I'm going to teach you what to say. I'm going to teach you and you'll know what to say. Okay? So it's very important that we understand that. So that's why, it's like a joke, but it's not a joke when I say, I'm not bragging when I say, well, I only had my whole notes last week was just Colossians chapter 1. Or what is that what we covered last week? Whatever we were in. Whatever chapter or whatever book we were in, that was my whole notes. Okay? I didn't have any other notes. Now, that doesn't mean I didn't study that section, know what it had to do with darkness and light and everything else when I did the teaching. But I didn't pre-write everything I was going to say, allowing that when I'm reading, he would tell me, stop right there, talk about this verse. A couple of weeks ago, we spent a lot of time on one verse about Paul being a prisoner, which meant he was restricted in what he can do, etc., etc. I had no thought about that verse till I said it. I allowed him to stop me there. And that's what I do every week when we do Torah study. I have notes from other years where I scribble on my note paper, and I bring that out, that I know these are verses that are going to come up, that come up every year. And every year, something new goes on the paper that he says, hold on, write this one down. That's another little thing I want you to talk about. Okay? Every year, something gets added to the paper. Because you have to be open to that. Okay? And that's really the key. So Moses is doing that, and then there's one more thing I have on here. Let me see where it was. Actually, there's two more things. In chapter 2, I left out that when he kills the Egyptian, he goes and buries him. Just remember, whatever you do in secret will be revealed. You can't hide anything. Okay? Moses learns that lesson. Because all of a sudden, even though he looked around, nobody was there, and he did what he did, and then they're like, hey, didn't you kill that Egyptian? He thought he got away with it. Don't think you can get away with anything. Okay, that's a lesson in there. And then lastly, I think it's worth noting, because it doesn't happen very often, in chapter 4 and in verse 31, it says, and the people believed. We should, okay? May he say that about all of us, because throughout that, from this point forward, and even this point going backwards, we don't find that happening a whole lot. We find and the people doubted, and the people feared, and the people panicked, no, here it says, and the people believed. Now, this belief is like the parable of the sower. There's no really deep roots on it at this point. It's not fertile ground yet. And so they go from the people believed to the people freaked out very quickly in the next chapter. Okay? It doesn't take very long till they're all like, look what you did to us, Moses. Now we got to make bricks without straw. So it doesn't take long. And so the same thing with us. We believe, but how deep does that root? How much do we hold on to it? Yeshua said to the 12, when the Son of Man returns, will he find belief? Will he find faith? Will he find trust? He said it to those guys. We're not those guys. All of us thinks of those guys as special and whatever. Those guys he said it to. The people who walked and talked and lived with him. Well, of course, they just freaked out on the boat, This is how we look for ourselves in all of this, right? So it says here, and the people believe. Well, so do we. But then we act just as dumb as they're about to act. Happens all the time. This is why I did the teaching, what are you thinking? Because we watch these people act foolish and we go, what are they thinking? They saw the signs. They saw the hand go in and it came out and it was leprous, and then it came out and it was healed. And they saw all these signs and wonders and they believed, and then they freaked out and they panicked. You know why? Because things didn't get fixed immediately. So you come into this, and then I know people that'll quit because their life doesn't get perfect immediately. Matter of fact, it temporarily gets worse. And that you see in the story, which is another part of the verses we did, is that it goes from, hey, we believe, to, oh my, it's worse. And some of you are thinking, yes, when I started keeping Torah, my life got worse. My family rejected me, my friends rejected me, my spouse rejected me, I got all these problems, I lost my job. Well, because you're being told you have to make brick without straw. But remember, the plagues are coming. The hand of protection on Goshen is coming, and the journey out and through the sea to Sinai is coming. It's the darkness and light, right? These things are hidden to be revealed. And the greater the darkness, sometimes the greater the thing to be revealed. Hallelujah. And amen and amen. So keep that in mind, amen? And be careful that nobody ever says to you, you are idle, you are idle. You know what that's about? I'm not going to use it the way it was in the story. In the story, the person is saying that, hey, I want to take them out and go and worship Yahweh. And he says, well, you're idle. That's why you have all that free time to go worship Yahweh. But I want us to be careful and just say that we're not being idle when we should be doing what we need to be doing. Okay? Don't be idle. Anyway, I mean, that's not a direct relation. These people are obviously still working very hard. And the Pharaoh's just being totally off the charts, wrong and abusive and all that other stuff. But just let that be a lesson that we should not be idle. But because we have the ability to go and worship our Elohim. You know, they wanted to be set free to go 3 days journey to worship Yahweh. How many of you aren't going to make the effort to be at Passover? Aren't going to make the effort to be at Shavuot? Aren't going to make the effort to be at Sukkot? No, there's no Pharaoh stopping you. Pharaoh was stopping them. So are you being idle in your working towards Yahweh? Not idle that you're not just doing something. There's a thought. But what about your being idle in your second tithe so you have the money to go? If you know what I'm talking about, go listen to the tithing teaching. Your feast tithe. Because I know right now, as I stand right here talking to you, I'm going to get at least a dozen people between now and April, especially when we get closer to it, that say, oh, I can't afford to go, and I know they didn't put away any second tithe. And this is not people that just found out about it when they called me. And they just found out about the feast and just found out about second tithe. So they hadn't. I'm talking about these will be people that have been with me for years. And I'll be like, well, why are you not tithing? Why are you not putting the money aside that he commanded you to put aside so you can go? And you're going to tell me you can't afford to go, so you're not going. Or you're going to want help going. I'm not talking about those of you that are actually poor. Okay? There are those of you that need benevolence legitimately. The rest of you are being idle. Not in not working, but in not doing his work correctly. The work he's given you to do. Just a thought. I was going to end with that nice and they believed, and then I got mean again. Sorry. Some of you are going to think it was mean, though. Someone said that wasn't mean. But it is the truth. And I'm going to probably be somewhat caustic with a few of those people that call me and say, well, where's your money? Why didn't you tithe? I bet you still went to Starbucks. I bet you still bought the extra, whatever luxury things that you got your extra stuff. I bet you got Netflix and all these other things, but you don't have money to go to the feast. But you got all that other stuff going on. Where's your priorities? These people wanted to be set free so they can go worship Yahweh. You can do it freely and you're not going to go. You know what? And you're not going isn't going to hurt me or anybody else but you. So I don't know why you would do that. All right? And none of that money goes in my pocket. That's for you to spend to go to a place and to be able to spend that time together observing the feast. For you to have lodging and food and all the things. It's just scripture. No, he's going to say, well, the scripture doesn't say they go to like a resort and whatever, like you guys. They go out from their house somewhere and they have to find some way of staying and eating. They need shelter and food. They had to pay for that. That's why God gave them the second tithe. Period. Okay? But are you idle? See, a lot of times you think idle means like the labor, the physical labor. They weren't idle with the physical labor, but were they idle in their vertical connection? Were they idle in doing the things of Yah? Anyway, I wasn't planning to talk about all that, but I deal with people that are idle in both. And that's really frustrating. Okay? And you should be more frustrated than me having to deal with that because the people will then come to me. I was like, what do you want me to do? Get going and go do something. And praise Yah, we have a few that I've told and have gone out and not only got one job, they got two jobs. Okay? 2 part-time jobs to give them a little more than a full-time hours, like 30 hours each. That's going to fix a lot of financial problems, you know? And believe me, anybody can do it. You just got to, you got to own it, you know? You got to own it. It's kind of like I was making a joke that I joined Planet Fitness over here. I haven't gone yet, but I joined. I haven't lost any weight yet. I'm kind of frustrated. I joined. I'm not in any better shape. I've been a member for almost 2 weeks now. I don't feel any different. You're all laughing. You see, how many of you are doing the same thing? Where you're expecting that because you study Scripture and you're calling yourself covenant and you understand certain things that you don't actually have to do all the doing. You're still coming from a Jesus Christian, he did it all for you mindset. Okay? That is the lie connected to that name and everything else. Yeshua, your Messiah, it says, my Father works, so do I, so do you. 6 days you shall labor. Okay? You'll never see dust of gold flying through the air in this building to catch and diamonds popping out of people's belly buttons. Okay? All right? That's not the way it works. The way it works is you work. All right? You make it happen. But you make it happen because you trust he's going to help you make it happen. You trust he's going to open up doors and close doors that need to be closed. He's going to help make a way. But he can't make a way for you if you don't move. All right? You got to be moving. Joining the gym did nothing but take money out of my pocket. Now I'm going to start going. It's only been a week. Okay? But I like the metaphor. I joined. Without going, nothing will happen in that area of my life. Okay? I will not get any stronger, any more flexible, any healthier, nothing. I will have to go in there, and when I go in there, I'm still going to have to use the machines or the weights or whatever. I'm not just walking in the building and saying I'm here, checking in and walking around and walking out will do nothing. They got actually a couple little tables where they sign people up. I could sit there and watch people work out. That won't help me any. They also have a little refrigerator thing I can buy like a healthy smoothie. Maybe that'll work. I'll drink one of their healthy smoothies while I watch people work out. I couldn't sit that still. Well, you're right. May's like, you couldn't sit that still. Don't destroy the metaphor. Look, I used to run a gym. I know what to do when I get there. I'm just trying to make the point. Okay? We can all relate to the point. Okay? Well, you could go, if you don't know what you're doing, you could go and get a trainer, listen to a trainer. Okay? I was a trainer, so I know what to do when I get in a gym, but the thing is, I'd have to go and do it, right? Okay? I remember listening to Tony Robbins, the motivational guy, one time. And he was jokingly saying, how many of you know somebody who knows something that they need to fix in their lives, know exactly how to do it, and still aren't doing it? He says, do you look at that person most days in the mirror in the morning? Tony's a wise guy too. But that's the thing. You know about the feasts. You know about the things of Yah. You know where you're being idle. You know the things you could be doing that you're not doing. Whether it's prayer, study, whatever it is. You know the things you could be doing that you're not. And so what are you going to do? It's in your hands, right? Just like he's about to give Israel, through this story, the opportunity to be free. Well, he set you free too. Now what are you going to do with it? That's the big question. I mean, setting you free doesn't help anything if you don't do anything with it. I'll make a better metaphor. What if I gave you a free gym membership? So you didn't have to pay for it, right? Because like salvation is paid for. Okay, free. I give you, are you going to lose any weight automatically? No. You're still going to have to show up and do something. You're going to put in effort. So even if I paid for it, it doesn't help you any. Made it easier for you to maybe do it if you had a financial problem, but by paying for it doesn't get you in better shape. Matter of fact, my paying for it may make it worse because it's free. You might not value it as much. Okay? You, Sarah Beth? You remember? Okay, you got the mic? Steve, give it to Sarah Beth. She remembered the question for chapter 3. I didn't stall just so you could have a question, but you can have one anyway.
It tickled my brain, but I couldn't figure out why it was so important to me at the time. But what you just said brought it out. Especially like at work, we're talking about there's people that are at work and they're just there, and then there's the people that want to build their career, the people that want to find out and learn stuff. And what you just said, taking me back to the beginning with the burning bush. Why a bush? Yahweh's watching Moshe. What are you going to do with it? Here's this. What are you going to do? And when he sees Moshe turn, Moshe chose to do something. Moshe was engaged. Then Yahweh speaks.
Amen. Amen. You know, he didn't just speak to him. He let him first give him something to get his attention. And then so what he did he stop? Did he get curious? Did he go over? You know? And so this is all a part of that whole deal. And so remember, I talk about the making decisions is the reason you exist, right? So he puts you through situations to see what you'll do. What are you, he let you know that salvation exists, right? Messiah made it available to everyone at the same time when he was resurrected, when he overcame death. So what you going to do with that knowledge now that you know about it? Because maybe you didn't always know that it existed, that it was there and available to you. Not only do you know it exists, but you know exactly what its purpose is. Its purpose is to make it possible for you to have eternal life. But then there's the little piece that gets in the way, which is what you do in between finding out what it does, what the purpose of salvation, and receiving the reward that it's designed to make possible. And that's you. What will you do with this? Now, Christianity puts it all into one lump simple sum. Your salvation equals your reward, so therefore if you're saved and you know about the salvation, you also know that you're going straight into the kingdom. No more illogical statement has ever been made on this planet. Makes no sense. Okay? Even in our human flesh, we understand no pain, no gain. And the pain, we're not talking about the suffering, we're talking about effort. No blood, sweat, and tears, no real achievement. Every successful person will tell you that the reason they were successful was because of the level of the journey, of the effort that was made, that they had to make to get where they got. Okay? Those who have it all handed to them on a silver platter usually end up awful, miserable, with nothing. Smart, rich people, really smart rich people, do not give everything to their children. They don't enable and entitle them. They make them make their own. Now, they guide them. They'll help them in terms of teach them how to do what I do. If I'm wealthy and I've learned how to be wealthy, and I teach my children how to do it, but they will have to do it. They don't just get it handed on them, because that ruins people. When you spoil a child, what happens? Do you usually get a wonderful child out of that? Not usually. Many a person has said when they have their kid acting the brat and they're talking to their friends, they say, yep, I ruined him. I ruined her. I gave them everything. I just made them work for nothing and earn nothing. And so we talk about earning stuff within the context of the Creator. People think, oh, that's all blasphemy and terrible. No, we don't have to earn anything. We just read Paul talking about walking worthily of the calling of the Master. You don't get called worthy without earning that title, worthy. You have to earn that. Perfection doesn't earn it necessarily. Effort does. Your heart does. Deuteronomy 8:2. You demonstrate through effort that it's in your heart. The effort of walking through a wilderness. That's the Deuteronomy 8:2, right? They walked through the wilderness to demonstrate under those conditions they were willing to make the effort to show that they would keep his commandments. That's your journey. That is your life now. Amen? All right, anybody else? Because I can keep going for another 3 hours if you want. I'm just feeling like I'm getting on a roll. Some of you are like, keep it going. Wait, Craig, you got something? Okay, Steve, give Craig the mic.
Maybe a lesson that we can get from Pharaoh. Seemed like he got counsel from one place about what to do with the Hebrews. And then if he had other counsel at that time that said, no, maybe if we guard these people, their God will allow us to have everything that they had to actually, saved us from the 7 years, but we wouldn't still be a country. Like maybe that we ought to be careful who we get counsel from and then what that counsel is saying a lot of times, and maybe this is the case here, that the counsel said exactly what he was comfortable doing and kind of already leaning towards. And
well, we're going to see Elohim do that with Pharaoh later, but really what probably happened here, and I agree with you, Craig, the first Pharaoh with Joseph, honored Joseph and his family because he saw that his whole nation was blessed because of the Elohim of Joseph. And he even said as much, okay? I mean, in whom else could we see, Elohim doing work than this man, right? So that Pharaoh saw that. But now if this Pharaoh that came in basically took the country on a silver plate, had his armies come in, take it over, and now he's running Egypt, he doesn't know how Egypt got to have all the wealth they had. He doesn't know about Joseph and his descendants. He just knows the wealth was here and I took it. I'm Pharaoh, okay? Then he recognized, well, there's a segment of this group that are all kind of related to each other. They're all got their own little inner culture within a culture, and there's so many of them, they could side with the other guys if we ever get attacked. That could be a problem. So fear is generating Pharaoh's motivation, okay? By the way, you see this governmentally all the way through history. You see, like when you look at, certain of the governments, like early Russia, and other governments where they would, out of fear, kill a lot of the people, kill all the leadership. Stalin on a regular basis, would just purge out the leaders because they're out of fear, always afraid that someone's going to take your power. So Pharaoh's the same way. Pharaoh's afraid that the people might at some point take his power. Now, of course, if we recognize that all power comes from above, then there would never be a fear. Saul had this problem. Saul panicked, wanted to do what he wanted to do. Samuel said, what did you do? You just gave up your kingdom. Your throne is done. If you would have just waited and trusted Yah, you would have been a great king until you died, till you have old age. But no, you gave up your throne right there. You did not trust. All power, all authority comes from above. Amen? Okay, I need someone to close in prayer. Okay, Steve, go ahead. Wait, Chuck has his hand up in the back. Let's go over to Chuck. We haven't heard from him today. I figure if we go long enough, Stephen will be here. Because Manny went to get him. All right, go ahead, Chuck. Close us in prayer.
Father Albert, we thank you for the time that we had to study together. And Father, we just ask that you would let us continue to glean and study and hear what you had to say. And we ask that you would guide us and direct us as we continue forth in this walk. We ask that you would bless our leaders and his families and all the families represented. In the name of Yeshua, our Messiah. Amen.
Amen. Amen. All right, if anybody wants to come up here, and we're going to wave goodbye to those on the live stream, you're welcome to come on up. All right, so we get everybody up here. When we do, on the count of 3, we're going to wish everybody a good night, Laila Tov, a good week, Shavua Tov. What's going on back there? Okay. We're getting like private conversations happening while we're trying to do this. All right. Laila Tov, Shavua Tov, and we'll tell them we love them. On 3. Here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Laila Tov, Shavua Tov, we love you. Get out the coin. Where's mine? Here we go.